Hey everyone, my name is Rooster, and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's video, I have a 2v2 match for you guys, which was the semi-finals of last weekend's Asia tournament. I'll be playing together with Skay from the 301 region, and we're up against two very strong opponents from the 201 region, and it's a bit of a 2-4-1. So on the one hand, I have some 2v2, we'll have essentially 4 boards to look at, and I also kind of wanted to talk about the War Factory strat. I've made multiple videos about it, and especially with the most recent patch and Firehounds getting buffed, it is something that we've seen more and more, and I kind of wanted to showcase you guys how I like to deal with it. Because I feel like it is a strategy that if you're expecting it, and there are some kind of telltale signs, then it's honestly a pretty straightforward comp to beat. So here we are. I will be playing on the very outside board. I start with spiders and marksman, and I am a typhoon specialist, and I'm up against this guy here with balls and crawlers. He is a giant spec. Now already here at the start, one of the weird things that he does is he purchases 2 hounds behind the towers. Hounds, especially when they have incendiary bomb and they're positioned like this, already tend to signal that the opponent wants to click firehounds, and yeah, Firehounds often will get played with factories. So if you see like big kind of areas here in the middle, towards the right, you see hounds at the back. Opponent buying hounds, where typically you might expect something like Arclight if they're playing, you know, in a defensive manner. Then already you should start thinking, okay, I might be up against a War Factory player, and well, I should be prepared to counter it. Over here we have Skay's opponent, who is a fortified specialist with double Mustang in the back, triple hound as well, again, looking like a factory setup in a way. And then over here we have Skay, who is my ally, and he is a giant spec as well, starting with sledgehammers, hounds, and adding 2 crawlers. Now, his setup is less War Factory-esque, right? He's blocking a lot of kind of the positions where a factory could be, so that tells you that it's likely not something that he wants to get into. On my side of the board, by the way, I sold the middle Chungus because I felt like it wasn't going to do that much. And I want to use as much money as possible to be able to get range on my tarantulas or, you know, buy other things that I may need. Left side here will crumble though. And, well, you can see the steel balls do get both towers. I should be able to get a tower myself. Hopefully I can take out this guy before he kills all of my units. Thankfully, he runs out of ammo and has to reload. So things are looking quite good on our side, and looks like Skay has managed to win as well. 1 sledgehammer still alive. The hounds managed to beat the Mustangs. Opponent that he was facing didn't really have the strongest opener. Mustang tends to not do too well into sledgehammers that early, and on our end we also managed to finish the round even with 2 spiders alive, so good damage. By the way, it's the siege map, which is the least balanced map of all the 2v2 map variants out there, and we are definitely not favored here because the opponents have 9,200 hit points by virtue of being on the inside, and that is such a big advantage to have. It just buys you, you know, an extra 1 or 2 turns to set up your board, which the outside doesn't really get. And the advantage that you get from being on the outside honestly isn't even does not weigh up against the incredible amount of hit points that you get. So, bit of an uphill battle, but at least we start chipping away at the hit points. Round number 2, nothing too specific here. We see improved sandworm picked up for Skay, kind of trying to go for one of the unusual cards, something that you don't see too often. And on my side already, you can see the fire badgers, or not the fire badgers, the fire hounds, with the incendiary bomb tech being picked up, and, well, I could already tell that this was coming, so what you'll see me do is already set up some Mustangs to try and intercept next round. I also didn't mind buying it, you know, just to have some anti-air or anti-wasp on the board, and honestly, it's not even that bad chaff either. But yeah, that would be my typical flowchart into this. If I know that firehounds are coming, I will try and get something that intercepts it. Sometimes you start with sabers, which I also run missile intercept on, and it's good enough, in my opinion, to deal with hounds, but this time I didn't have them, so I preemptively set up Mustang here, also covers my flank, and then, you know, I can click the missile intercept button as soon as I see the firehounds, which have now been purchased. On the other side of the board, we have triple sledgehammer, as the opponent picked up mass-produced sledges, and Skay went for a sandworm right away, selling one of the sledgehammers to make that happen. So, yeah, very, very unusual board here. Lots of different cards getting picked up, lots of card variants being picked up. On my side of the board, I'm struggling a bit. The fire does land. I mean, I didn't have the money to preemptively click missile intercept, and it would have been a bit crazy to do so. And yeah, looks like we will end up losing as a result. Obviously, the fire takes out all my chaff, instantly kills my Mustang, which were worth 400. And round 2 quickly goes to my opponent. Skay still doing alright though. Has that improved sandworm on the board, which is doing very well against the board of mass-produced sledges, hounds, and Mustang. But I think with the steel balls moving over here, it's likely not going to be our round to take. That's fine though, as we have already got a counter now set up for the hounds, and it should go a lot better for me as soon as I don't have that fire killing all of my small units. Worm does a good job of cleaning up some of the remainder of the units, but we will take a little bit of damage. And now round number 3, I mean, let's have a look at what we have. Could be unit drops, looks like it will be. Phantom Ray picked up here for my opponent. And immediately put on the line, trying to attack my left side tower. I was kind of expecting this. It is a pretty common thing to do. I decided to pick up the sabers, which sold for a good amount. Can sell them for 300 here. Sadly, I already went for the Mustang. Otherwise, I could have picked this up and gone for missile interceptor on these. But considering I already went for the Mustang as 2 deployments, I decide to yeah, click the missile interceptor here, sell one of my sabers. The other one I aimed at the tower, which will get killed most likely. I decided to pick up a wasp early, although I believe that when I do the tally, I'm not very happy about the money that I'm spending. I wanted to keep, I think, a little bit of money in the bank. Yeah, look at that, 200 left, to be able to buy an abyss preemptively next round, because I was certain that the factories would show up. And so instead of unlocking that wasp, which would cost me 50 extra, I just go for a Mustang here behind the saber to also block the flank. And coincidentally, it will also start intercepting this phantom, although I think it might be a little bit too far away. So yeah, as you can see here, I will end up going down, but at least I'll stall the tower from falling. On this side, sabers have been picked up, and saber as well for Skay, who is now going into air units as well, making good use of the giant spec that he has, and hopefully that'll allow him to bait out certain responses, right? Because the counter to Raiden is not the same as the counter to Sandworm in most scenarios. I mean, Melter can do a good job against both, but can get overwhelmed as well by the different techs that spawn larvae. Not sure if he's going to be alright here. There are some Mustangs left. On my end, it seems to be going quite well. We managed to push through. The Mustangs have intercepted the Hounds as expected, and because of that, well, the Mustangs also double down as chaff, and my opponent does not have great chaff clear. If the fire doesn't land, then, you know, he just has untech'd Hounds, which are not fantastic. Good debuff here. I still have some marksmen left to be able to take down the Phantoms. I will lose my tower, but it's not a big deal. Now the rest of my army can catch up to the spiders. These sabers, sadly, should be able to take out my tarantulas, so I'm not convinced I'll be able to win here. My marksmen are going to have to do a lot of work. Although the Raiden, still alive, able to help out, and never mind, that debuff was amazing. The mass-produced sledges, easy to take out, so round 3, we immediately strike back, and we stop taking damage. Round 4, I have my Typhoon available, and this is where I wanted to preemptively buy an abyss. You don't always have to do this, but I was so certain that the factory would show up. You can even see it there in the background already, that I was happy to pick up an abyss. And also, abyss is a pretty good scaling unit. You know, it wouldn't have been the worst into this board, and I mean, he had to buy something sizable because, you know, a board of nothing but Hounds and Steel Balls is not really going to get there. So yeah, there is the factory as expected. I have my Typhoon. I have 750 in the bank right now. I'm not sure what I picked. Oh, I already unlocked the Abyss. That's where my money went. And we sell the Sabertooth to be able to still get another crawler as well. So 2 deployments, an Abyss here, made sure that I have enough space. 8 spaces here between the crawlers. Try and make sure that you do leave, like, you know, an adequate amount of space for potential titans to be put down. Otherwise, it might get a little bit awkward. Over here already, it kind of is, but I have some space to just put one over here, and then another one over there. This Typhoon will get sold down the line, but for now, I'm happy to have it a little bit further back to try and deal with the Phantom. I had a good idea that it might get sold, but, you know, in case he calls a bluff, I should be able to take it out, especially now that the Mustang is there to instantly start intercepting those missiles. Marksman has been picked up by the opponent, but a level 1 marksman I don't think will be enough to take out this Abyss. And now starts kind of the question of how are you going to counter, you know, the factory apart. I mean, I already have the Abyss, but like, what is your flowchart in terms of techs? And there's a couple things you can do. If your chaff clear isn't ideal, as it is here, right? I don't have ranged spiders, I don't have ranged arc lights. I have Mustang, but in this case, I'm just using them to intercept and kind of double down as chaff. Then Dark Companion is great to get. Obviously, you don't need it immediately. The Mustangs are still kind of fine, and I can somewhat like brute force my way through the opponent's army. But as soon as you get to about 2 Abysses, you can start thinking about Dark Companion. If, however, you already have good chaff clear, so either you're playing standard and you already have ranged arc lights, or you're playing on the line and you have ranged, you know, spiders or hounds, you don't need to go for Dark Companion. It's really only something that's required if you know that your chaff clear is inadequate. If you don't need to get Dark Companion, I really like going vertical sweep first. And another thing that you might be able to get is Disintegration. But that's something that you should think about when you have 3 or maybe 4 Abysses. It is definitely not one of the first things to get. Opponent here, by the way, struggling a little bit as Overlord was picked up and managed to beat the Raiden and the Sandworm. But thankfully, my Abyss is able to fight back. And yeah, let's have a look at what these items have in store for us. We do win yet again. Looks like it's another unit drop, and I get a Wraith here immediately, which is, of course, fantastic. Very, very happy with that, because I knew that I wanted to get into Dark Companion, so what I can do now is pick up the Wraith. Of course, this Typhoon can get sold, or, you know, the Tarantulas also can get sold. So for now, I'm just going to sell those Tarantulas, go range on the Wraith, and I still have some money left here to go for a second Abyss. It would mean skipping a deployment, but hey, I got 1 extra deployment thanks to the unit drop, so I think that's honestly not a bad thing to do here. Alternatively, I could also buy more Wasps, which is also part of the comp, right? So you go Abyss. If they go Firehounds, which they usually will, you try and get something to intercept. If you start with Sabers, can be Sabers. If not, can be Mustang. And then you just build Crawlers. You go for your Abyss. You go Wasp. And then, yeah, as I said, the flowchart of text is kind of dependent on whether you have good chaff clear or not. If you don't, then it's Dark Companion first. If you do, then you can go vertical sweep into something like Swarm Missiles, especially if they add a whole bunch of fangs. Now, on the other side of the board, I'll pause a little bit because we have a lot to go over. Opponent has heavy armor level 2 Overlord and already managed to get into Launcher Overload there, which is quite scary. Looks like they just took and sold a unit drop to have more money available. And I think the same happened here perhaps for Skay. Does have Mech Rage on the Sandworms. It's a cheap tech and honestly still quite good into the rest of his board, but he's gonna need something else to deal with these boats. Of course, he's a giant spec, so he could just get something like a Melting Point or a boat himself. I'm not the biggest fan of trying to mirror, but it is an option that is available to him. Looks like he's just going to go for double attack first and kind of set up right now. Doesn't bode too well over there, but I was very confident about my situation. We were also communicating during this game saying, hey, you know, I'm feeling quite good about the position that I'm in right now. I mean, I know how to play against this comp. I faced it many times, so I didn't really feel too pressed. Looks like we did add some Wasps. High explosive, by the way, on the on the War Factory is unusual. Typically, it's going to be steel ball production first. You can see how important those wasps are, right? Like, managing to distract the melter for long enough, which is always going to be the War Factory player's response into the Abyss. I was a little bit apprehensive of Wraith maybe showing up, but you will look at my Wasp tech bar, and I'm running range AA, EMP, and shield. And honestly, this bar is also very good against the factory players, because they like to play factory, they like to play melter, and they like to play a Wraith often. And EMP is so good against those 3 units. So oftentimes you will see me go for double, triple tech Wasp near the kind of end stages of the game if I have to be able to beat the factory player and turn off all of their important techs. So here, sadly, we lose around that big Overlord, a little bit too strong. Still, I wasn't feeling too anxious. Enhancement module, though, picked up by Skay's opponent. That is quite nasty. Skay also does pick it. He is a giant spec after all. Both of us will skip because we can't really make good use of it. You can't put an item on the Abyss, and even though I could have leveled and, you know, made some money off the Tarantula, it was just a bit too slow. So, yeah, you won't see us going for it. Over here, though, Enhancement module fight for certain. A little bit tough. I think he did get a level perhaps on the Raiden there, so was able to make some money off of that. And thankfully, there are no big levels available here for Skay's opponent. This guy, by the way, is called Farmer, if I'm not mistaken. You can't see his profile pic here, but he's a very well-known 201 player. Can sell out of the Mustangs, though, so it does have some money available. And Enhancement module plus boat is one of the scariest combinations in the game. Definitely have made some videos about that and won plenty of games with it. It is crazy how much money you can get from it. Here you can see me go for another Abyss, and as I mentioned, we go for the Dark Companion tech. Now, I sell my Typhoon in this scenario. I still want to sell out of the Tarantula. I also want to sell my Wraith down the line, because at some point I'm not going to need this Wraith to be here. I will simply spawn all the Wraith I need with my Abysses. You can see now Ball Spawn gets picked up. Again, that's typically the first tech that you will see. It's also why Vertical Sweep is quite nice, because anything that gets spawned is in the direct line of the factory, so you don't have to lock onto the factory. You can just kind of hit it by locking onto anything that gets spawned in front of it. In this game, though, I wasn't too sure if I wanted to go for that. I was kind of eyeing Disintegration, especially with the Ball Spawn, and me planning to get, you know, 3-4 Abysses. It's not a bad tech at all, and I kind of wanted to test it. Usually I go Vert because it's a cool tech and I've had a lot of success with it, but I was kind of down to also try Disintegration, which I know can be an adequate alternative. Now, pretty simple round here. Opponent going for more melters, ranging them, Ball Spawn on the steel balls, keeping one around to perhaps go Mechanical Division at some point. And now we see Melting Points getting picked up as well for Skay. Manages to insta-lock a boat there, which bodes well. Or boats well, I should say. Apologies. That was a terrible dad joke. Now, Melting Point levels very quickly, so it's a nice giant to buy if you want to make some money as an alternative to Overlord, which is worth a little bit more, right? 250 upgrade cost, but can be a bit more tricky to upgrade, whereas the Melting Point, yeah, 1400 experience really isn't that much in terms of giant requirements. Over here, we're doing well. Left side already managed to take down the tower. This one will fall too, sadly at the cost of 1 Abyss, but with the Wasps here to distract the Melting Point, I think we should be just fine. And now let's see how things go. Looks like Skay also managed to win, so a great round as we enter round number 7. And here, I mean, I'm just satisfied with where I'm at, right? Like, I've got all of the pieces that I need. Maybe like one more crawler here and maybe one more here would be nice. Some wasps. But at this point, I'm just kind of looking to get more of the same stuff. More Abysses, more Abyss techs. I'm kind of looking at Disintegration, maybe the range enhancement down the line. And I'm looking at Wasp techs as well, especially after seeing this Wraith that gets picked up. Again, a very common answer by factory players, especially against Wasp, which, you know, you should be playing with Abyss to try and deal or distract that Melting Point. And yeah, look at this. Tons and tons of money available. I sell the Wraith. to get a little bit more money. I loan and have enough for 2 more Abysses and Disintegration. So now we're already up to 4. Disintegration, for those of you that don't know, creates a massive blasting area every 15 seconds. And any units hit will get slowed and also lose 20% of their current HP. So the nice thing about that is it does big chunks of damage to the factory, but also to the melters, and crucially it slows down all of the spawned units, which is useful because it means that the Abyss has less hard of a time locking onto the factory because the steel balls, etc. don't distract it as much. Over here, we now have triple tech overlords. I mean, yeah, this guy is making big money off of the enhancement module. Skay, though, not doing too poorly either. More melting points getting picked up now. Chaff clear here is the Hounds. Not the best chaff clear. Definitely could see him getting into trouble down the line. I guess he does have a massive improved sandworm, though, with Mech Rage to help out with that. But this is starting to get scary, right? Mothership now picked up, so Mustangs likely will have to come out. And we can kind of see how this is going to end up. Again, though, I was feeling quite confident about my position. I didn't really see myself losing this anytime soon, apart from maybe spells or something showing up. But I know that this comp is just strictly better than the factory comp, if played correctly. And I still had a lot of things I could click, right? I was eyeing the range on the Abyss. I was eyeing range EMP on the Wasps, maybe even AA, now that we see that Lone Wraith. And yeah, look at this. It's such a cool tech. It's not something you see very often, but it does get to see some play, at least, when people play Factory a whole bunch. On the left, sadly, one of my Abysses gets insta-locked, but we do also take out Factory very quickly. Now, the late Wasps arrive, the Crawlers as well, causing a lot of stall. And hopefully we can take down one of the towers here so this Abyss can stay alive and take down the melters. Looks like we should be able to. Here we go. Another Disintegration will hit. And with the help of the leveled marksman, we managed to win our side pretty convincingly. 2 Abysses still alive, a bunch of Wasps as well. On the other side, you can see Skay is having some trouble with the Wasp, as expected. I mean, it was a bit of a surprise. Picked up this very round. But now we managed to take down the tower. And the Abyss should be able to take down this boat, I think. Melter doing its very best, even managing to take down the boat and get another level for itself. Now we're looking at 2k hit points, so perhaps we can finish this in a turn or 2 if things go well. Round number 8. And Lightning Storm shows up. I did say, you know, one way for me to lose my side could be big spells, and here they are. Picked up by my opponent, picked up by Skay. I wasn't really looking to use a Storm here. Yes, it's alright versus the Chaff, but honestly, my Chaff clear is already very good with all of the Wraith that I spawn. I just didn't want to spend the money on that. As I said, there's some buttons that I'm eyeing, like range, EMP on the Wasp, which is going to cost money. Range on the Abyss is going to cost even more if I want to get levels on the Abyss. You know, that's a lot of resources, and this is an expensive spell. So let's just skip and take this on the chin. We were still quite healthy, so I felt decent about the position I was in. Probably is worth shielding just my marksman. You can see me clicking aerial specialization because I saw the ranged Wraith, and I wanted to try and get rid of that as fast as possible so that my late Wasps wouldn't be bothered by it. We see shielded Wasps with EMP picked up, by the way, for Skay's opponent there, which will also mean that the spawned Wasps from Mothership will have the same techs equipped. Kind of a scary situation. Mustangs, though, as expected, picked up by Skay, and he tries to defend his board, or protect his Mustangs at least as best as possible. Interestingly, the opponent went for Orbital, which can have kind of the same effect as a Storm. Storm is a bit more consistent, it hits more often, so it does a better job at clearing chaff than Orbital, but it is also a lot more expensive. And now we see Diffraction picked up on the melting points, Multi-Melter, which is a line that I have seen before. It's an alternative to Wraith to try and deal with Wasps in particular. But again, you know, I still had the EMP Wasp play available, and also ranged Abyss would mean that the Abysses would be even safer because multi-melter has less range than a regular melter by quite a margin. Sadly though, I do end up losing this round, mainly because of the storm there killing a lot of my chaff and allowing the melters to lock on. But I was fine with that. We're sitting at 5k hit points, that is plenty. Melter's honestly doing kind of well, but sadly a couple wasps still alive, and the next mothership will soon spawn. Thankfully this melter does lock on, so it does a good job at least of limiting the damage that we take. But now the EMP goes through, and that will be the round. Hopefully though, not another big spell would be nice as we enter round number 9. And here, my priority was to go range EMP Wasp and maybe pick up a few more, because I could see that my opponent wasn't investing more in Wraith, despite picking up one with range at some point. I don't really know why. He didn't want to buy more. Maybe he was afraid of the Marksman, but I feel like that might have been better than Multi-Melt, but hey, we'll see. Lots of spells, by the way, show up. Fire and Ion Blast amongst the options available. Ion Blast picked up by my opponent tries to get rid of my Marksman, and also will be able to again get rid of some of my chaff as the wasps will likely move in. I go for range and EMP as I mentioned. Levels have been picked up here and there where possible on the Abyss. We are loaning, temp range important. I just decided to put some fire down on my opponent's side of the field. I mean, there are a lot of crawlers there, so the quicker I can take down his units, the easier it will be for my Abysses to lock on. I don't have the money to go for range enhancement here, but 3.7k hit points, I thought we should be fine, even if we lose. Fire and oil attempted by Farmer here. Will land a little bit of fire, but a good block from Skay, who went for the Ion Beam himself. Hopefully we'll be able to take down, 2-3 boats. That would be lovely. And we see Sprinkler clicked as well here for Farmer, perhaps expecting fire to get picked up, but that's not what Skay went for. More Mustangs and AA on the Mustangs. 2, and let's see on our side of the board how things go. Disintegration, by the way, gets blocked by shields, so you will see that as long as the shields are alive, the units on my opponent's side of the field will not get hit. Second blast of Disintegration, though, incoming. There it is. Will hit the factories, but a couple of the melters locked onto my Abyss. One of them falls, the other one's still alive. The left side seems to be doing quite well, as it did not have to deal with that Ion Blast. Great debuff there, as the Abyss with its dying breath takes down one of the multi-melters, and you should be able to win this as a result. Over here, though, Mustangs seem to have gone down, which means that these wasps being spawned are a massive issue. Again, you can see the timer on the mothership is about to complete. I will say, though, this sandworm is doing a great job of distracting the boats, and now I have my Abysses coming in with some wasps. I don't have that much left, but maybe we can at least make sure that a couple of these overlords will die. I mean, look at how distracted they are. Thankfully, the melters kind of save themselves, make sure that they don't get debuffed. The Abysses now arrive. I doubt they'll be able to do too much, though, as they get stuck on the shielded wasps. And, yeah, level 3 boats doing rather well there against my level 1 Abyss. But we survive. And now round number 10, we know that there are no spells available, as it is a unit drop round. Now, I wasn't too interested in anything. I kind of wanted to just get some money. So I grab a fortress, and my opponent goes for the rhinos. Now, I have to say, at this point in the game, sadly, my opponent disconnected. I don't exactly know what happened, but don't really look at this round too much. You can see that Mechanical Rage is picked up on the hounds, which obviously doesn't do too much when you only have a few hounds on the board. And he also buys a mountain into my Abyss. So, yeah, this is not the best round ever from my opponent, because it was AI. So sadly, he wasn't able to complete the full game. On this side, though, the player is still there, and they are in a commanding position. Levels available on the Overlord. They seem to be in a rather good spot. I mean, beating both my ally and myself on the previous round. But now I have access to range. And I also decided to go for loose formation, as I could see that my opponents didn't go deeper into Wraith. So their chaff clear shouldn't be that good, right? They're mostly kind of brute forcing right now with War Factory, with HE, and Melting Point with Multi-Melter. But I thought with the amount of crawlers I have, loose formation surely is quite good. And with the money I get from selling the Fortress, I am not only able to grab the third tech on the Abyss, which is range, I'm also able to get AA on the Wasp. Now, this is useful against Wraith, for one, but I was also just kind of buying it to try and help out my ally after I'd beaten my opponent, because range AA EMP Wasp should be very good into the shielded EMP Wasps and, of course, the mass Overlords on that side of the field. Over here, it's just more Mustangs being picked up, Mustang Melter. Crawler production, interestingly, has been purchased with Subterranean Blitz to try and kind of stop the Overlords from clearing. Now, he does have high explosive on the bar and has clicked it, so should have pretty decent chaff clear. But let's see how this round will play out. Abyss, by the way, instantly locking on to that mountain. So, yeah, this is kind of nasty. The Rhino's also getting hit by the Disintegration, getting slowed, instantly getting targeted and going down. And just look at the amount of chaff that we have, not just on the ground, but also in the air, with all of these Wasps kind of protecting the Abysses. The Wraith goes down quick, and that means, you know, the Multi-Melters are helpless. They get EMP'd, making them even worse into our air board, and all 4 Abysses will get to survive. Even better than that, all 4 Wraith are alive too. And now we're starting to attack the mass boats over here, and I mean, the help couldn't come in any sooner, or any later rather, as Skay was definitely struggling a little bit here. I mean, mass boat with enhancement module is an absolute menace, especially when they're fully teched. So thankfully we're able to get in. We get the debuff, allowing us to take down a boat, and now all of the Abysses converge, as my triple tech Wasp should be able to clean up the air, and then hopefully the Abysses can make sure that we kill all those boats. AA Marksman back here as well. So yeah, lots and lots of units to try and counter this board. We managed to clean up. We kill the remaining of the Wasps, and that will be all she wrote as we punched our way to the finals. Now, spoiler, we actually ended up winning the finals as well, but it wasn't as interesting of a game, so I didn't want to showcase that. A bit of a shame that my opponents disconnected. I don't think it would have made a difference at this point in the game. I am just so far ahead that there's little, I think there's nothing even they can do to try and win this. Mass Abyss like this is just so powerful, and it is exactly the proper counter to what my opponent was attempting. But yeah, what I wanted to showcase is how I like to deal with this type of board. You can play this in standard as well. As I mentioned, it kind of just comes down to, do you have good chaff clear or do you not? If you don't, you can go for Dark Companion into something like Disintegration, and then range later on if need be. If you do have good chaff clear because you went Hound or Arclight or Spiders with range, you can skip that part altogether, in which case I often like going Vertical Sweep early. And then later on, you could even go for something like Swarm Missiles, which is good against the Fangs, and it also can threaten tower takes, which is quite useful. Early Mustang, I do like picking up. They're good chaff in general. You kind of punish, right, this type of board for not having great chaff clear, especially when you intercept the Hounds. An alternative could be Sabers if you happen to have them on the board. And then do not forget about the Wasps. They are crucial. They're there to make sure that these melting points don't lock on to your Abysses. And then later on, they also have some great techs available to EMP the Factory, the Melter, or even the Wraith if your opponent decides to go for that line. AA Marksman can be useful if you have them and your opponent decides to get into those donuts. Over here, pretty standard board, right? Just kind of the power of boats plus enhancement module being shown. Very scary board. Skay, definitely with a classic board, Melter Mustang, but with some spice in there, as there is, of course, the improved Sandworm, which did a good job. I mean, second on damage, as you can see, and even top on units killed. So, yeah, who needs, right, conventional chaff clear when you can have a Mech Rage level 3 improved Sandworm? Anyway, I hope that you liked this game. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Let me know down below what you think of 2v2. and what you think of this factory strat. Have you had trouble against it, or do you also go for this line that I always use as a counter? Make sure to put it down below. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.